The blizzard hit without warning. Fitting, Nora thought bitterly. Everything in her life happened without warning. Rejection, banishment, and now apparently freezing to death in the mountains. She'd been walking for 7 hours since the Iron Peak pack cast her out. Her thin cloak did nothing against wind that cut through her like knives. Her snow-white hair whipped around her face in brutal gusts. Her skin, already pale enough that people whispered she was cursed, had taken on a bluish tinge from the cold. Nora knew she was going to die. The rejection ceremony had been this morning. By tonight, she'd be a frozen corpse in the wilderness. Born unwanted. Died alone. A life bookended by rejection. Her parents had abandoned her at Iron Peak's border when she was 3 days old, wrapped in a thin blanket with nothing else. No note, no explanation. Just a pale baby with pale hair left in the snow like trash. The pack took her in out of obligation to Moon Goddess Law, raising her in the orphan house with other unwanted pups. She'd never known love, never known belonging, only the knowledge that she was different, and that difference was dangerous. When she'd presented as Omega at 17, there'd been a flicker of hope. Omegas were valuable, even strange-looking ones. But as years passed and no one claimed her, that hope died. At 24, she was the oldest unclaimed Omega in the pack, an embarrassment they couldn't figure out what to do with. Then Marcus solved their problem. Marcus, a mid-ranking beta assigned to mate with her because no one else volunteered. He took one look at her on their wedding day and publicly rejected her in front of the entire pack. "I won't mate with a ghost," he'd said, voice carrying with cruel clarity. "She's unnatural, cursed. I want a real Omega, not whatever this thing is. Look at her. She's barely even a wolf." The pack agreed enthusiastically. The Alpha banished her immediately. Less than an hour to leave or face execution for trespassing. So she'd walked into the mountains, into the coming storm. Because where else was there to go? Now, 7 hours later, Nora was lost. Frozen. Dying. The blizzard had erased any sense of direction. She couldn't see more than a few feet ahead. Her legs were giving out, her body shutting down from hypothermia. This was it. This was how she'd die. Alone and frozen, exactly as everyone expected. But then she felt it. A pull. An instinct so strong it was almost physical, tugging her left, away from the path, toward what looked like a sheer cliff face. Nora had learned to trust her instincts. They were the only thing that kept her alive in a pack that didn't want her. So despite her exhaustion, she followed the pull. And there, hidden behind an outcropping of rock, was a cave. Relief flooded through her so intensely she almost collapsed. Shelter. She stumbled toward the entrance when she heard it, whimpering, low and pained, coming from inside. Every survival instinct screamed at her to run. Injured animals were dangerous, but the whimpering came again, weak and desperate. And Nora's healer heart overrode her caution. She stepped into the cave and froze. Wolves. 12 of them, all enormous, all with pure white fur that seemed to glow in the dim light. They were arranged in formation, clearly in distress. Some shivered violently despite thick winter coats. Some had visible injuries, blood matting their pristine fur. Elite guard. Nora recognized the signs immediately. These wolves were too large, too coordinated, too perfectly positioned, even while injured, to be anything else. They were elite soldiers from one of the great packs, caught in the same blizzard. She should leave, find another cave. Elite guards served powerful alphas who didn't look kindly on strangers. But watching them suffer, she knew she couldn't walk away. "I'm going to help you," she said softly. "If you'll let me." The 12 white wolves turned to look at her simultaneously, a coordinated movement that confirmed their elite status. The largest wolf, a massive beast with ice-blue eyes and an alpha presence, made a soft, chuffing sound. Not aggressive, almost welcoming. Permission granted. Nora spent the next hour assessing their conditions. 3 had injuries from what looked like a rock slide, deep gashes and bruising. 2 showed signs of severe hypothermia. 7 were exhausted, but relatively uninjured, and none could shift back to human form, which meant whatever happened had drained them completely. Okay, Nora said, thinking aloud, a habit from years of working alone. First priority, warmth. Second, shelter from wind. Third, treating injuries properly. She looked at the wolves, still watching her with unnerving intensity. I'm going deeper to see if there's anything useful. Stay here. Try to conserve heat. Nora ventured into darkness, using the strange instinct that led her here to guide her steps. 50 feet in, she found a smaller chamber, more protected from wind. And there, in a corner showing careful organization, was evidence of previous human habitation. A stack of dry firewood, flint and steel wrapped in oiled cloth, tattered blankets, a clay pot for melting snow. Relief made her want to cry. Someone had left supplies for future travelers. Those supplies were going to save all their lives. She gathered everything and returned to the wolves, who'd started huddling together in her absence. Look what I found, she said, smiling. We're going to make it. All of us. Starting the fire took 20 minutes, and nearly all her remaining strength. Her hands were so cold she could barely feel them. But finally, a flame caught. She built it carefully, using skills her caretakers had taught her, until real heat radiated from it. The wolves crept closer immediately, drawn by warmth. Come on, Nora urged, positioning them in a tighter circle. We need to share body heat. I know you're trained warriors and probably hate showing weakness, but right now survival matters more than pride. She worked methodically, positioning the most hypothermic wolves closest to the fire, checking breathing and heart rates. Then she treated injuries, using strips from her cloak as bandages, cleaning wounds with melted snow. The largest wolf, the commanding presence, watched her work with those intelligent ice-blue eyes. When she came to check his injuries, she found deep gashes along his ribs he'd been hiding. You should have said something, she scolded gently. Leaders don't do anyone any good if they bleed out from stubbornness. The wolf made a sound that might have been sheepish. By the time she finished, it was full night. The blizzard raged harder than ever. Nora fed more wood to the fire, rationing carefully. She settled among the wolves, who'd rearranged themselves into something like a living nest, with her at the center. Their body heat, combined with the fire, finally drove away the deadly cold. But Nora couldn't sleep. Someone needed to keep the fire going. Watch for signs of anyone getting worse. So she stayed awake, feeding the fire, checking each wolf periodically, and singing softly to pass the time. Lullabies the caretakers had sung to orphans. Work songs from the pack kitchens. Traveling songs. Anything she could remember. Her voice was soft and sweet, and the wolves seemed soothed. Several rested massive heads on her lap or against her sides. She stroked their fur absently, marveling at its softness. The north wind blows cold, and the snow falls deep, she sang quietly. But the fire burns bright, and the pack wolves sleep. In the darkness we're safe. In the storm we're warm. Together we'll weather this frozen storm. The largest wolf, the alpha, watched her throughout the night. He never slept, she realized with concern. Keeping vigil just like she was, protecting his pack even when he could barely move. The mark of a true leader. Nora met his gaze and smiled. You're a good leader. Your pack is lucky to have you. The wolf's tail thumped once. Something almost human flickered in those eyes. As night wore on and exhaustion crumbled her barriers, she found herself talking to the wolves. She told them about growing up in the orphan house, about learning to be small and quiet and invisible, about watching other orphans find families while she remained unwanted year after year, about her wedding day and Marcus's rejection, about walking into the blizzard with no destination and no hope. I don't know why I found you, she admitted, checking a silver-eyed wolf's bandages. But I'm glad I did. At least this way. I won't die alone. At least my last act was helping someone. The large wolf made a sound low in his throat. Almost a growl, but not aggressive. More like firm disagreement. Nora smiled and scratched behind his ears. He leaned into the touch like any dog seeking affection. It's okay. I'm used to being forgotten. I'm used to being the girl no one wants. The wolf made that disagreeing sound again, louder. Several others stirred, ears twitching. She got the distinct impression they were listening even in sleep, and they didn't like what she was saying. Dawn came slowly, gray light filtering in reluctantly. The blizzard was finally breaking, wind dying to occasional gusts, snow falling in lazy flakes instead of driving sheets. Nora had made it through the night. More importantly, all 12 wolves were still alive, breathing steady. Body temperatures stabilized. Even the injured ones showed signs of healing faster than expected. Relief made her dizzy. She'd done it. She'd saved them all. She was checking the last wolf's bandages when she felt it. A shimmer in the air. A surge of power that made her small Omega Wolf press against her consciousness in automatic submission. The 12 white wolves were shifting. Nora scrambled backward, giving them space as their forms blurred and reformed. 12 men emerged, all large and powerfully built, all with platinum blonde or white blonde hair marking them as northern wolves. They were naked, which made her immediately avert her gaze, cheeks burning. "Sorry," she stammered, staring hard at the cave wall. "I should go." "Stay," commanded a deep voice with so much alpha power she froze mid-turn. "Please." She slowly turned back, keeping her eyes carefully on faces. The men had arranged themselves in protective formation with the largest at the center. He looked at her with those same ice-blue eyes. Now that he was human, she could see just how imposing he truly was. Tall, maybe 6'7", with broad shoulders and a warrior's build. His hair was platinum blonde, so pale it was almost white, falling to his shoulders. His eyes were the palest blue she'd ever seen, like ice in sunlight, like glaciers at dawn. Strong jaw covered in pale stubble. Sharp cheekbones. The kind of face that belonged on ancient statues of warrior kings. His body was covered in scars from countless battles. He looked like a Viking from old legends, like a god of war made flesh. "My name is Caspian," he said, voice still carrying command but gentler now. "I'm Alpha King of the Frostlands. These are my elite guard, the 12 finest warriors in my kingdom." He paused, and his ice-blue eyes never left hers. "And we owe you our lives." Nora's breath caught in her throat. Alpha King. She'd sheltered the Alpha King himself and his elite guard. The most powerful wolf in the entire territory had spent the night in her lap while she sang him lullabies. "I didn't know," she said quickly, panic making her words tumble. "I knew you were elite guard, but I didn't know you were... I'm so sorry if I did anything inappropriate." "Inappropriate?" One of the guards, younger, with silver-white hair and gray eyes, laughed warmly. "You saved our lives. You stayed awake all night keeping watch so we could rest. That's not inappropriate. That's extraordinary." Another guard nodded, this one with hair like fresh snow and blue ice eyes. "Most people would have run the moment they saw us. You saw 12 massive injured wolves and your first instinct was to help. That takes courage." Caspian was still watching her with that intense gaze. "What's your name?" "Nora," she said softly. I was from Iron Peak Pack. Until yesterday." "Was?" Caspian's eyes narrowed dangerously and suddenly the temperature seemed to drop. "What happened yesterday?" Nora hesitated, then decided there was no point hiding it. "I was rejected by my intended mate. He said I was too pale, too strange, cursed. The Alpha banished me immediately. I was trying to find somewhere to go when the blizzard hit." "They banished you for your appearance?" Another guard, darker platinum hair, eyes burning with anger, sounded outraged. That's barbaric. Completely illegal under Frostlands law. It doesn't matter, Nora said quietly, wrapping her arms around herself. I have nowhere to go anyway. No family, no pack, no one who wants me. Caspian stood in one fluid motion. Even wrapped in a cloak one of the guards handed him, he managed to look regal and commanding. You found shelter. You found us. And I think that was exactly what the moon goddess intended. He moved closer, and Nora had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. I've been searching for 3 years, he said quietly. Searching for an Omega who meets very specific requirements. She has to be compassionate enough to help strangers without expecting reward. Strong enough to survive impossible situations. Brave enough to face danger without flinching. He paused. And she has to have the gift of Pathfinder. Nora blinked. Pathfinder? The ability to find safety when all seems lost, Caspian explained. It's rare, manifests in moments of desperate need. You found this cave in a blizzard when you were dying. You found the supplies we needed. You knew exactly how to keep us alive. That wasn't luck, Nora. That was your gift awakening. He dropped to one knee in front of her. Every other guard immediately followed suit. I've been searching for a Luna, Caspian continued, voice carrying to all the guards. Someone worthy of standing beside me. Someone who sees those in need and helps without hesitation. Someone who leads with heart rather than power. His ice-blue eyes burned into hers. And I found her. I found you. Nora stared at him in shock. You can't be serious. I'm nobody. I'm a rejected Omega with no pack, no family, no training. I'm too pale and too strange, and everyone says I'm cursed. You're beautiful, Caspian interrupted firmly. Your hair is like moonlight on snow. Your skin is like winter frost. Your eyes are like dawn sky. You look exactly like a northern Luna should be. And more importantly, you have the heart of a true leader. He held out his hand, calloused and scarred from battle. Be my Luna. Be my mate. Stand beside me and help me build a territory where wolves like you are valued, not cast out. Where compassion is rewarded, not punished. Where no child ever has to grow up feeling unwanted. Nora's mind reeled, from rejected and banished to being proposed to by the Alpha King himself in less than 24 hours. It was too much, too fast, too impossible. I need time, she said, voice shaking. I need to think. Of course, Caspian said immediately, lowering his hand but not standing. You've been through trauma. You need time to heal, to decide what you want without pressure. I'm asking you to come to my territory, to see what life could be like, to get to know me and my pack before you decide anything. Nora looked at the 12 guards, all still kneeling, all watching her with respect and hope. She looked at Caspian, at his sincere expression, at the hope in his eyes, at the way he was offering rather than demanding, and she thought about the alternative, walking back into the blizzard, dying alone. Okay, she said softly. I'll come with you. I'll see your territory, but I'm making no promises about being your Luna. Caspian's face lit up with a smile that transformed him from imposing king to devastatingly handsome man. That's all I ask. Thank you, Nora, for everything. The journey to Caspian's territory took 4 days through mountain passes. The elite guard had supplies cached at strategic points, which they retrieved once the storm passed. Nora learned their names. Frost the tracker, Storm the strategist, Ash the healer, River the scout, Stone the weapons master, Wolf the spy, Hawk the lookout, Bear the strongest fighter, Fox the information gatherer, Raven the diplomat, Shadow the stealth expert, and Caspian, who led them all. We were on reconnaissance, Frost explained on the first night, checking southern borders for rogue activity. The blizzard caught us in a bad position. We would have died if you hadn't found us. "The Pathfinder gift," Storm added. "It manifests in desperate need, yours and others. You needed shelter, we needed rescue. Your gift led you right to us. That's not coincidence. That's destiny." On the second night, Caspian sat beside her at the fire. The guards had given them privacy. "Tell me about Iron Peak," he said quietly. "About your life there." So Nora told him everything. About growing up in the orphan house. About old Maya, who taught her healing, and was the closest thing to a mother she'd ever known. About whispers that followed her everywhere. About being useful but never valued. About Marcus's rejection and the Alpha's banishment. "I never belonged there," she admitted. "I always knew I was different. I just thought it meant I was broken." Caspian's hand found hers. "You're not broken. You're rare. And rare things are precious. Iron Peak's blindness is my blessing because it brought you to me." "Will your pack see it?" Nora asked, voicing her fear. "Or will they see what Iron Peak saw? A ghost? A curse? Something wrong?" "My pack will see." "They're Luna," Caspian said firmly. "The woman who saved their king's life. The Pathfinder who found us when we were lost. And if anyone dares disrespect you, they'll answer to me personally." The intensity in his voice made Nora's heart skip. No one had ever defended her before. When they arrived at Caspian's territory on the fourth day, Nora was stunned. The Frostlands stronghold was built into a glacier, ice and stone creating structures that glittered like diamonds. Buildings carved from ice itself stood alongside traditional stone structures, all designed to work with the natural environment. It was beautiful and alien and unlike anything she'd seen. The pack that came to greet them was equally impressive. Hundreds of wolves, all healthy and strong, all with pale hair and light eyes, marking them as northern breeds. They ranged from platinum blonde to white to silver, from ice blue to gray to pale green eyes. When Caspian announced he'd found his Luna, the cheering was immediate and deafening. Nora was overwhelmed by the welcome. People bowed with genuine respect. They offered gifts, fur, carved bone, preserved foods. They called her Luna like it was already decided. An elderly woman named Kira, the pack's head healer, took Nora under her wing immediately. "We've been waiting for you," Kira said as she showed Nora to a suite in the main keep. "The king has been alone too long. We need a Luna, someone with a healing heart and strong spirit. From what I hear, you have both in abundance." Over the following weeks, Nora settled into life in the Frostlands. Caspian courted her properly, showing her the territory on long walks, introducing her to pack members, including her in council meetings. He never pushed, never demanded, never made her feel like she owed him anything. She learned he'd been searching for a Luna for 3 years, ever since his parents died in a territorial dispute and left him ruling alone at age 25. He'd met countless Omegas, all beautiful, accomplished, eager to be queen. But none felt right. "I was starting to lose hope," he admitted one evening as they walked through ice gardens. "Starting to think maybe the moon goddess didn't have someone for me. And then you found us in that cave and everything made sense." Nora found herself falling in love with him. Not just with Caspian the Alpha King, but with Caspian the man. He was kind to the elderly, patient with pups, listened to the lowest Omega as seriously as his council. He worked alongside his warriors rather than commanding from a throne. He was everything an Alpha should be. But she was still afraid. Afraid of being rejected again. Afraid of not being enough. It was Kira who finally helped her see clearly. "Child," the old healer said one afternoon as they worked in her medicinal garden, "you're letting fear make your decisions. Are you happy here?" "Yes," Nora admitted without hesitation. "Happier than I've ever been." "Do you love him?" "Yes." The admission came easily. "I love how he leads with strength and compassion. I love how he remembers everyone's names. I love how he plays with pups and respects elders. I love everything about him." "Then what are you afraid of?" Nora realized Kira was right. She'd been so focused on past rejections, so trapped in old patterns, she couldn't see the acceptance right in front of her. Caspian had chosen her. His pack had welcomed her. She had a home, a family, a man who loved her exactly as she was. That night, Nora went to Caspian's chambers, heart pounding with nervous excitement. He answered immediately, concern flickering across his face. "Nora, is something wrong?" "No," she said, unable to stop her smile. "Nothing's wrong. Everything's right. For the first time in my life, everything's right." She took a breath. "And I have an answer for you." Caspian's breath caught, hope and fear warring in his eyes. "Yes," Nora said simply, feeling the rightness settle into her bones. "I'll be your Luna, your mate, your partner. I'll stand beside you because I love you, Caspian. I love you and this place and these people, and I want to spend the rest of my life here with you." Caspian pulled her into his arms and kissed her, deep, passionate, full of promise. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. "I love you too," he said roughly. "From that first moment in the cave, when you didn't hesitate to help 12 strange wolves. When you stayed awake all night to keep us safe. When you sang to us like we were precious. I've loved you from the very beginning." The mating ceremony was held under the full moon 3 weeks later. The entire Frostlands pack attended. Nora wore a dress of pure white fur and ice blue silk that seemed made of winter itself. Her white hair was adorned with crystals that caught moonlight and made her look like an ice princess from legends. The 12 elite guards stood as witnesses, healthy and whole thanks to her care, their white formal uniforms making them look like an honor guard of winter soldiers. When Caspian marked her neck, claiming her as his mate before the moon goddess and all witnesses, the pack howled in celebration. The sound echoed through the glacier, through the ice palace, through the entire territory, a song of joy and belonging, and new beginnings that Nora felt in her very soul. Years later, when young wolves came to Luna, Nora feeling broken or unwanted, feeling like they didn't fit anywhere, she'd smile and tell them her story, about being rejected and banished, about walking into a blizzard with no hope, about finding 12 wolves in a cave and choosing to help, despite having nothing herself. "I was nobody," she'd tell them, taking their hands. "A rejected Omega with no pack, no family, no future. But I had a gift I didn't know about, and a heart that wouldn't let me walk past suffering. And that was enough." She'd introduce them to Caspian, still tall and strong, looking at her with the same love he'd shown that first morning in the cave. He was searching, she'd explain, searching for someone who would help strangers without expecting reward, who would sacrifice their own comfort for others' safety, who would lead with compassion rather than power. She'd look them in the eyes. Being rejected doesn't mean you're unworthy. Sometimes it means you're being saved for something better. Sometimes the moon goddess has to take away what's wrong so she can give you what's right. Trust in that. Trust in your worth. She'd squeeze their hands. Your pack is waiting for you. You just have to survive long enough to find them. And those young wolves would leave standing taller, believing their differences weren't curses, but gifts waiting to be unwrapped. That rejection was redirection. That somewhere out there, the right pack, the right place, the right person was waiting for them to be brave enough to keep walking through the storm. Nora had walked into a blizzard expecting to die. Instead, she found 12 wolves who needed saving, and in saving them, she saved herself. She found her home, her family, her mate, her purpose, all because she had the courage to help when she had nothing left to give. All because she trusted the pull that led her through the storm. All because she believed, even in her darkest moment, that choosing kindness over self-preservation was worth it. The ghost Omega became a queen. The rejected became the most beloved. The cursed became the blessed. And the wolf who thought she'd die alone in the snow lived the rest of her days surrounded by love, warmth, and a pack that would never let her go. The end. Sometimes the moon, Goddess's greatest gifts come wrapped in blizzards and broken hearts. Sometimes being lost is the only way to find where you truly belong. And sometimes the wolves you save in the darkness become the family that lights your way home.